So here we are. Welcome back to another episode of Erotic Wisdom, the fascinating wonderment to be living in a body. I am your host, Mrslove, and today at the Laboratory of Love, we've got a special guest all the way from the Northern Hemisphere. So unfortunately, he's sitting inside my computer in my session room. Thank God to technology. And his name is Shane Senior. Welcome to the show, Shane. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm very excited because this was a very impromptu meeting, and often they turn out to be the richest one, the least planned. So I've met Shane in London recently when I was attending my graduation weekend with London Real as part of this broadcasting course that helped me birthing this show, Erotic Wisdom. And we were watching a movie on medicine plants, was a premiere from Brian Rose. And me and Shane sat next to each other. And so we chatted, we introduced each other. And then when the movie ended, few people were asking questions, which I have to admit were pretty boring. I noticed I think the movie was so rich and sometimes it's best to say less when we are full, but nevertheless, there was this session of question and answer. And then at one point, Shane just stood up. He had a question, and which I thought was the most interesting question of the night. And he brought vegetarianism into the conversation. There is always this big debate on how to go about saving the world. I mean, I've got my own idea. I don't think the world needs much saving. I think she's doing quite fine. I think we human needs to take care of ourselves in a way where we really save our spontaneity and authenticity and connection to reality. But definitely veganism, it's a big argument to have. We can't ignore it any longer. And I'm giving you this whole introduction, then I'm gonna leave you a minute to speak for yourself, Shane. But what I wanted to say to the people that are listening, why you are in the show, and why did I invite you? Because when you stood up and you spoke, your presence was undeniable, your charisma, the energy in your body, and you looked bigger than reality. I mean, you're a tall man already. You're pretty tall. How tall are you?
6 foot. 6 exactly.
And you stood, you were majestic, you spoke, you didn't even need the microphone, your voice was projecting. And for me, this is really, that what struck me about you, that what I found really attractive when a human being, it's so embodied, so present into their skin. And the projecting of the voice is like expressing your inner self into the world. It was like a song, was harmonious. And my dream is that the world will be populated by people like you, really embodied. And I call this erotic wisdom of the body. The way I use the body, the word erotic is not as a sexual activity only, of course, also sexuality. It's an erotic expression. But for me, eroticism it's greater than that. It's really meaning being alive, feeling the gift of this body, the mystery of this body, as receiving it as our ally, so that the first element we make love with is our body. And for me, when you stood up and you spoke, you were in lovemaking with yourself, with your mind, with what you were talking about. You were very present with the people in the room. And that's lovemaking. You have to be present. You weren't avoiding.
Yes.
And so here I am. I expressed you my whole fascination. So I'm going to start asking you if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps what what brought you to this flowing relationship that you have with self and your body, that is expressed so beautiful?
Yeah, so as you just said, Valentina, we met 2 weeks ago now, wasn't it, at the London Real Reconnect launch, as well as the launch of your graduation for what you're doing now, which is fantastic. And as I think we briefly discussed on the evening, the main reason why I actually went there is because I've been targeting Brian Rose for a long time now. Well, probably about 3 to 6 months, to try and get to speak on his show, because of a lot of the passion that I have, a lot of the experiences I've come from, the backgrounds I've come from. And as you probably saw on the day, in the end, it was just a case of, look, they was asking questions. Who wants to ask a question? It's like, look, you're not giving me the mic, so I'll just stand up and ask the question then, because I'm loud enough as it is, so I don't need the microphone. And yeah, and I think that the whole veganism side of things, and the reason why I've become so passionate about it, and the reason why we've created a business around it, is ultimately because this world, you know, how you just said it, is the world never really needs saving. We like to call it the world needs saving, but it's really humanity needs saving, because the way we're destroying this planet is just destroying humanity, because the Mother Nature will always find a way of getting rid of whatever's lived here. It's done it for billions of years, you know. It's done it with the dinosaurs, with the Ice Age. It's done it with whatever species has lived on Earth. It will find a way of getting rid of it if it needs to, and restarting again. So it's humanity that we need to start saving, because we're destroying this planet to the point where humans are either going to kill themselves, or we're going to have to evacuate to space somehow and live out there, because
go destroy another planet and go fuck up another planet, because
yeah, and there's so many things, you know, that I'm passionate about, and technology is a great thing. Otherwise, we couldn't be having this conversation now. But there's already talks around 5G going to be so bad for the environment. They've tested it already, and 5G is killing birds, it's killing animals in the wilderness. So already there's not enough tests on 5G, but yet people are crying for it. People want it. Everyone wants everything now. Everybody wants more speed. They want more connection. So it's inevitable it's going to happen. 5G, 6G, 7G, you know, where it's going to go, I don't know. But as technology evolves, it's fantastic because we can connect in a better way. But at the same time, it is bad for the environment. Then you've got things like plastics. The plastic pollution is a whole nother world of destroying the planet, in terms of the water, in terms of where are we going to put all of this extra waste now. You know, it's another huge thing that I don't talk about the plastic as much, because I talk more about the veganism side of it, because I still believe that veganism is going to be the next step in changing the way humans evolve and the way humans think. You heard on the night, Dennis was talking about, he believes 2020 is going to be the big fundamental year change, in terms of humans kind of making these necessary changes into changing the planet Earth as such. And that's why I approached him with the vegan side of it, because I truly believe that veganism is going to be that step, and it's going to start, well, it's kind of started already this year, but I think next year is going to be even bigger with veganism, and people understanding that it's not just the animal cruelty, it's not just some of the things that people believe, you know, they think it's because you care about the animals and you don't like the cruelty. Veganism is a way bigger picture than the animal side of it. It's more the planetary side of it, which a lot of people aren't. Yes, yeah, and these are the things that the people are not aware of. They're not aware of the fact of how much water cows drink. They're not a fact of how much land that it takes up. As an example, over 40% of the planet's food sources go to feeding cattle.
Yeah.
Right. In which we then just use. Sorry.
And water.
And water, yeah, of course, yeah. Which in turn, all that we're doing is using the food sources to go through the middleman to then feed us. Where if we actually ate just the crops ourselves, there would be over like 3-4 times more land on this planet, which we could use to build homes for the homeless, build new infrastructures, whatever it is that we need to develop. And the same with the sea then. People don't realize that in the fishing industry, especially pilchards and things like that, it's not just humans that are eating these fish. Again, I think the statistics are something like 30-40% of the sea's pilchards, and there's a couple of other fish as well, I can't quite remember the names off the top of my head, are all fished and fed, and they put it into it's called, I think it's called fish grain or something like that. It's called, which
Yeah.
they use to feed the cattle.
Yeah.
So again, we're destroying the seas because these fish are vital to the corals. And people, humans are not realizing we're damaging the corals because we're taking the fish, but we're not really taking the fish for the humans. We're taking it to feed the cattle, as well as to take the land to feed the cattle, so that we can eat the cattle. And all we need to do is eat the crops in the first place.
So
So
simple. Sometimes it's so simple, we can't get it. You know, we go through this complication and depletion and expenses of energy on all level, all level of energy, when it will be so direct that we eat direct from the plant, and it's more immediate. And I'm totally with you on this.
Yeah, and again, it's not just the planet and the energy side of it. It's of course, people have been brainwashed since probably the 60s, 50s. I think it started mainly after the war now, when all these processed foods come along, and the meat and dairy industry have sort of just pushed it to a whole new level. And myself, being a previous bodybuilder, I used to also think that only men ate meat, which is a philosophy that a lot of people believe, when in real fact that you don't need meat to be strong, fit and healthy. And people believe you need meat for the protein source, again, to be fit, to be strong. In reality, you don't need that at all. And I've realized that myself as a vegan. And this is the mindset that we now need to help change in people's minds. Is not necessarily the will side of it. It's the fact of what they've been brainwashed over the last 50, 60 or so years that, men have.
It's old belief system, and it's the hardest thing to let go sometimes. And people are really, really attached to habit and emotionality. I mean, I grew up with my mother slapping me to eat meat. I think I was born a vegetarian. I never really liked the taste. I could have done without it. And I was forced to eat it because it's good for me and I need to grow up. And the same with me.
Yeah.
And then you have to learn to undo all of this. And of course, there are all the emotional associations, especially for Italian, that if you don't have a piece of meat in your plate, or ham or salami, what you gonna eat? It's like, oh my God, you're gonna starve. And in reality, it's like, just relax, look around. So plenty of everything, of so much alternative. And especially now in our contemporary days, we have all the superfood. And I think this is the excitement for me. I'm excited about the future, actually, because I think we are really showing up with creative living also. When there are crises, the creativity comes up. And and even in food, in the way we can eat, we just have to be patient and re-educate ourselves and listen to the pioneer that brings up, like, for example, like I wanted to ask you, when you were a bodybuilder, were you a vegan bodybuilder?
No.
Vegan after?
I only become vegan this year, so 2019, the day of this recording. So probably around February, I think it was. So about 11 months or so now I've been a vegan. So it's and it was massively new to me, and it annoys me a little bit when I hear of people when I'm trying to convince them on the realities of veganism, and they say, look, I can't change overnight. It's going to take me a long time. Well, I used to eat 20 to 30 kilos of chicken a week, and I had this old philosophy of, you need your meat to be a man, and you need your meat on your plate, like you just said. And I just twitched it overnight like that. I just made that decision, right, I'm going vegan, and that's it. And within a week, it all gone out of the cupboards, all of the dairy had gone and everything had gone, and that's it. So you can change overnight.
What was it for you? What made you switch so much? What was
I think the first real reaction was I just kept seeing more and more animal cruelty videos. There's a lot of stuff out there when you sort of see the reality of what these animals go through, the torture. It's not obviously what people have been brainwashed to believe. Again, that was kind of the first change, because I've been also on my spiritual transformation for probably the last 4 or 5 years now, and I kind of was trying to get rid of that last little bit of negative energy. So I was like, right, well, eating all of this food, all of this meat, all of this fish, whatever it may be, this is probably the last sort of final string that I need to do to get rid of it. And that was probably the first change for me. But yeah, after about a month or so, I then started looking into the bigger picture, which was the which was the planet side of things. And again, it opened my mind to, whoa, this is worse than I thought it was. And that's why I've become passionate. I'm trying to look at speaking opportunities to get this message out there now.
Yeah, and for me, you see, it's all very related. So one thing I want to say to whoever is listening that is maybe on the edges, on the fence, and they struggle with being vegan for emotional attachment, for a variety of reasons, I really want to invite you to watch the videos on YouTube, because, you know, it also shifted me. I've been like a partial vegetarian for 20 years because, as I said, I don't really like the taste of meat, but being Italian, I mean, dry meat like salami or ham, I always, you know, lean over that. And dairy, I kept eating milk and cheese. Also, it's emotional for me. I couldn't have coffee without milk, you know. It reminds me of my Italian heritage. And then there was a weekend where I was home alone, and I took the whole weekend and I typed slaughterhouses on YouTube, and I really watched what's going on. And I watched them from all over the world. I watched South Africa, I watched Europe, I watched, you know, England, because, you know, you think, oh, it's only here, oh, it's only there. It's actually everywhere. It's the same story everywhere. I watched cows, I watched pig, I watched chicken, I watched how they inseminate cow. You know, I even saw the mentality how these baby are not even born out of lovemaking, out of natural lovemaking anymore. How the farmer, a group of human, interfere with this natural movement of a species with each other. They interfere, you know, they take the semen from the bull, they shove it inside the cow. You know, it's like, where is the pleasure? Where is the harmony? And out of there are calf are born that we're gonna eat. Well, human are eating, maybe not me in particular, but until then, maybe I feed my children. We feed our children that milk that is produced out of this brutality, you know. And you know, it's not we can't not consider that anymore, you know. And then, of course, when we are brutal with the animal, we are brutal with the planet. It's the same. For me, it's more and more clear. There's no separation between the life, the living, conscious life on the planet. Everything is connected. So if we produce brutality with the animal, it's brutality in the environment. It's going to be brutality in my inner environment. You know, of course, I'm going to have cancer and disease and diabetes and, you know, and I see also, you know, there is this increase in cancer in our organ of reproduction as well, you know, genitals and breast is because we don't know how to nourish ourselves, and we don't know how to nourish the planet. And we reproduce with brutality, you know, in this run. And yeah, so again, like you, when I watched all those videos, my no became so clear, so clear. Every time I wanted to get some milk or a piece of cheese, I could see this little calf taken away from her mom. I could see the lamb. I used to love lamb, you know, it tastes amazing. And yet I know it's that little cute lamb, you know, and here I'm pulling the string of the lamb in my mouth. It's like, what am I doing? So one thing that as we're talking, it comes to my mind, because I know a little bit about your biography. So maybe we can share this piece if you like, because it maybe I feel there is a connection maybe in your lifestyle now, because for me, veganism, it's about becoming more vulnerable, to accepting our vulnerability and our tenderness, to feel the feeling, feel also the feeling when the planet suffers, that we suffer. And it goes against that strong masculinity that goes with having a piece of meat in the plate because I need to be strong, I need to be alpha male, and I don't bend, and I'm conquer, and I have to have more, and it's about killing the animal. And so it interests me how you are a bodybuilder, and I also know you fought the mixed martial art. Is it called MMA?
MMA, yeah, that's what they shortened it down to.
Art, eh?
Yes.
I wasn't sure. And then, yeah, tell us what happened there. I wonder if that vulnerability, that moment of vulnerability, opened your body to something other, because your life changed when you had that fight. You wanna tell us about?
Yeah. So for me, I would say the life key thing was, because for probably years and years, again, it was this perception of you want to be the tough guy, you need to prove that you're tough. It was kind of something I brought back from my childhood. You know, I was always kind of the kid that probably when I became sort of a teenager, I was always a tough kid, but I never sort of got involved with fights. When I was younger, probably at the age of 10, something like that, yes, in and out of fights. But as I become about 13, I'd matured quite a lot, never really got involved with fights, but I was always still kind of a tough kid. And that kind of trying to prove yourself as a tough guy, again, that went through probably through my military career in the Royal Marines. And then when I went into mixed martial arts, that was kind of the reason why I started. I thought, you know, it's something I'm good at. I've always been good at fighting. Why not try and do this professionally? So, of course, I got involved with that. And the key changing moment was all of the training I'd done, the coach had got me to lose 2-3 sizes from what I was. So I actually fought at a lightweight, which is something like 70 kilo here in the UK, which was way too skinny, way too small for me at the time. But of course, I followed the instructions of the trainer at the time. I thought, okay, you know, perhaps if that's what he thinks I should fight at, I'll fight at that size. Long story short, ended up losing the fight in front of about 1,000 people. And the changing moment, though, was nothing to do with the fight. It was nothing to do with that. Was because I had lost so much weight, and I thought, right, that's it. I'm going to get big and bulky, and I'm going to get back to kind of how I used to be. I'm going to do it my way. So come the end of the year, I set a New Year's resolution. I was going to do it, started lifting weights at the gym. But then, of course, what happened next is I fell in love with weight training. And this was the key defining moment, because then after about a year, I decided I wanted to become a professional bodybuilder. And by going through this failure and it then pushing me into the bodybuilding side was the key change, because this was the year and this was how I met my wife. And the wife was the key changing moment to my life and my career. And that's how we're here talking now, is because she introduced me to my first book about the law of attraction. And that was really the life-changing moment for me becoming spiritually awakened, for me understanding how this world works. Again, you don't just read a book and you become a master overnight. It takes a long time. You still probably don't quite understand it at first. But that was the changing moment. So when I look back now, I think, well, there was a reason why I went through all that. Was the reason why I went through that loss and that failure, and to get into bodybuilding was not to be the top professional bodybuilder. You know, I had an ambition of being the Mr. Olympia. That was kind of where I wanted to go. And I thought, right, I'd set myself a 10-year plan. After about 4 years, this is when I met the wife, and I ended up giving it up and quitting. Now, that was because of the bigger picture and what I'm trying to do now, I think, with this planetary side of things and pushing myself more of a speaker rather than the bodybuilding side. So, yeah, that was the fundamental of what changed everything.
And tell me, how did it feel when you fought in front of 1,000 people and you lost? And you just tell me now you come from military training where losing, I guess, is not an option. You know, you have to win and conquer, and that's the training. How did it feel for you inside?
Yeah, and that's always something I've never really been fond of. Most people, I don't think, don't like losing. Again, as I've become more spiritually enlightened, I realise that there's lots of positives to every loss. But at the time, you know, it was devastating when you put in all the effort and the training and you lose. And I don't think no training can teach you for what's going to happen, because you can do all the training, you can be as fit as you want, you can be as strong as you want, as skillful as you want. But when you actually get into that cage and you've got lights coming at you from everywhere, and all you can hear is people around you screaming, it's a totally different environment now. And the training kind of goes out the window, and you can't really see anything. All you can see is the lights. So I think the nervous side of it was a big sort of awakening for me, because I'd never really experienced anything like that in front of people before. So I think that was probably what got the better of me on the night. And again, the guy who I fought at the time, it was actually his 7th fight. So he had experienced being in that limelight, being in the front of the cameras, being in front of the audience. It was my first time. So I'd never experienced any of this sort of stuff. So it was
and
a real...
didn't think to try again? Somehow you quit. That was your first and last time.
Oh, but I didn't want to quit. I started the weight training with the ambition to
with the ambition to come back and do fighting again.
Yes, keep going bigger. And I still did. I think I carried on for about 1 month. And at the same time, I started the weight training. But then have you seen the old documentary from Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pumping Iron? Have you seen that?
Which one?
Pumping Iron.
No.
No, if you haven't seen it, it's one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous quotes where he says that getting the pump from your weights is better than actually coming during sex. And it was an expression that he said at the time, but it's one of those things that until you become very connected with the weights and you get into bodybuilding, that you actually kind of understand what he means. It does, and whether it's the same for a woman as a man, I don't know, but for a man, when that testosterone is going and you're all pumped up and your chest is going, your arms are pumped, sometimes you do actually feel like a god, and it does make you feel incredible. And it's a feeling that it's hard to explain to somebody unless you've been there yourself. And once I kind of got that, I kind of thought, well, what am I doing all of this fighting for? Even though I'm kind of fighting just to prove my manliness, when the reality is I don't like getting punched in the face every night. You know, the job I was doing at the time, I was an executive sales supervisor. So going to work on the Monday morning with a black eye from training, never used to look professional. Used to get people look at you and think he's a thug, he's been fighting at the weekend or something. No, I haven't been fighting at the street. I've been training, you know. So people look at you different. Yeah.
Not a very steady sales pitch, yeah.
Yeah, not a good sales pitch. Yeah, your face with 1 or 2 black eyes and a few bruises. So it doesn't look good. And then I kind of thought, what am I doing the fighting for? And I just went down the path of sticking with the weights, and that was, yeah, the big key changing moment.
Yeah. And then you met your wife, and when we spoke earlier, I asked you what was, if you could share with us a moment of erotic awakening, and you mentioned to me seeing your wife for the first time. Do you want to tell me how it felt in the body?
Yeah, it was an odd one, because when I met my wife, it was during the bodybuilding stage. I'd just come out of a damaging relationship. It was all a bit up in the air, so emotionally I wasn't quite with it.
And you were in love with pumping your body, so you were having a love affair, which was with your weightlifting, no?
Yes. And of course, at the time, I had sort of gone through my transformation, like you said, with the weights and everything else. But if anyone that knows me from my past, I was always quite racist and quite discrimination is a word I like to use. So me meeting my wife, even though my wife at the time, well, she still is, of course, she's Polish, but at the time when I met her, there was just some sort of bond that I couldn't really explain. I didn't really know how to explain it, but there was just something telling me I had to pick this woman. And I had to keep being persistent. I had to keep chasing her. And it was quite funny because I always say, you know, an English woman is a lot easier to obtain than a foreign woman. I know there's probably people going to be listening to this and watching this that'll totally disagree. But I think English women are just far easier. They're a different breed, a bit like American women, different breeds to some of the Europeans.
Maybe perhaps they were just familiar to you. So you knew how to move around them because you grew up here in your country. So maybe,
well, not necessarily that. I'm going with that. Is it not necessarily that. I think that the difference is if you go on a date or if you go out in the UK to a party or whatever, generally you can get with an English woman on day one. You know, whether it's a kiss, whether it's some foreplay, whether it's sex or whatever, you can generally do that on the first day. And with my wife, however, it took a lot of meetings, a lot of get-togethers, and there was that persistence where normally in the past I would have just sort of thought, you know, whatever, let's just move on, let's chase the next girl kind of thing. But there was just something in me that said, yeah, this is the one. I've got to keep chasing her, and I did. And of course, after so many months of us meeting, it all happened, and you know, the relationship developed. And then this was where, as I mentioned, it probably wasn't until about 12 months where she really started showing me some of her old books, which luckily the first one was The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And that was probably the first book that sort of gave me my awakening and sort of, I understand this. I didn't really fully understand it, but I understood it to the point where I could start turning my life around for more wealth, health, and success.
Beautiful. And that led you to write a book. Shall we speak about your book while we're talking about books? You published a book. That was your business card that you gave to me. So
yes.
when did you publish that? And
did we briefly mention about how the book actually started and how I've got to where I am now, though? Did we?
No, we haven't spoke about the book yet. So go ahead. Tell us a little bit about that.
But before the book, though, a key thing we kind of have to discuss, which is what I speak from on stage and is part of my story. In between all of this, I also went as an executive close protection officer, so looking after high net worth individuals across the globe and different security events as well. After that stage, I actually started a successful enforcement company, which many refer to as bailiffs. In the UK, we call it enforcements now, but many refer to it as bailiffs or debt collectors, this kind of thing. And during that career, even though I earned a lot of money, I ended up losing this wealth because of the way in which I was acquiring it through the negativity. And it took me a long time to quite realize, why is all this money finally coming in and I'm losing it on some terrible investments? And it was because of this negativity, again, the animals, and then this was what led to me being vegan as well. And I realized the way I was acquiring all of this money, because again, money is generally handed to you via cash in this industry, and cash is generally made from trees, and trees being the second highest source of energy on planet Earth after water. And again, all of this paper money was holding all of this negative energy, which I was taking home, and I'll have to store sometimes I'd have 20 to 50,000 of cash in my home, which I'd have to take to the bank. And all this negative energy was either in my home, in my vehicle, or in which was leading to me ultimately losing my wealth, and which was then kind of the stage which led to me writing the book and led to my spiritual transformation and led to where I am now as a speaker. Because again, I had to kind of give it all up. I had to sit down with the wife and decide, look, enough's enough. We've got to give this up regardless of the money. It's not going well for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And also what you're saying about the wealth, that when you protecting it, you lose it, because you're expressing the fear of having it with joy. And the more we hold on to it, like you say, you were hiding it, you had the cash, you had to keep it in the house. So there is this heightened energy of protecting. And then by paradox is when we lose it, because we not just flow with it. And also there is a piece here that actually I when I was preparing for this, I look up and you send me a talk from one of your recent seminar. You gave a talk, and there was this piece that stuck with me actually. You say that when you were going to the people collecting the money, they were cursing you. So at the end of the day, they were giving you the money. You became very skilled to recognize the value in the house. So if they didn't have cash, you would say, okay, then do this and this and this. And they would give it to you, but they would send you off in the road cursing you. And that must be like quite a heavy things to carry energetically, you know. So yes, you were having the wealth, but it came with this load of curse and bad energy.
So as you mentioned then, of course, the one thing that you have to do in that industry is you're kind of looking for people's leverage and vulnerabilities. As you do in any business, you generally look for leverage, and in that industry, the leverage may well be a valuable item that's emotionally connected to that individual. So you turn up to an address, they haven't got the money, they tell you that their family hasn't got the money to borrow them to pay for their court fine, whereas in reality, 9 times out of 10, there's somebody in their family that can help them. They just don't want to make the call to call them. So of course, your job then is, right, what can I take that's going to emotionally get you, because it's connected to you in some form of value, regardless whether it's a worthless item, in my opinion, because it's only worth 5 or 10 British pounds. But in their opinion, it's worth $1 million because of the emotional connection. So you're then looking around the house for things like, it could be a ring that was passed down from an ancestor of theirs, as an example. It could be a painting that
the dead grandmother.
And it can even be something simple, like you could give a gift to your friend. It could be like a certificate, and it's been put in a frame. Something very simple. I tell them, look, we're taking that's going to be sold in auction. That then drives their emotions of course, the first thing they do is they get defensive. So anger and violence start generally coming after that. But, you know, in this industry, you don't really care. You're prepared to take anything. You take abuse all day, every day. But it triggers their emotional connections to the point where they get on the phone, they ring their brother, their sister, their mom, their dad, whoever, and they generally then get you the money. So that was the way in which you get paid, because ultimately, if they pay their court fine, I get paid, and I go home in 10 minutes, and I've earned X amount of money. And this is the way in which it works in that industry. You don't really want to be taking their stuff because it's hassle. If I take your stuff, I've now got to go and sell this in auction to get my money. Which I don't want to be doing that. I just want you to pay me, and I go to the next address and earn more money. And sure. it's an easier way of course, acquiring wealth. And then when you've got guys working for you, they do the same, and you all take a percentage, and that's how you make a good profit in this industry. But
so you must,
as you mentioned,
very well armored, like you say, you are trained to take the abuse and to be emotionally unavailable, because this must have been highly emotional situation that you were in.
Yeah, and I think this is why in that sort of industry, most people that succeed have either come from military, security, or police backgrounds, because you have to have a huge amount of discipline, because there's times where you want to hit people and you can't, because they'll either spit in your face or screaming in your face. They might push and shove you, and you've got to just stay calm, and no matter what, you have to stay composed to, look, well, I don't care, I just want your money kind of thing, rather than I want to fight you or whatever. So the discipline side of it, and coping with the emotional curses, like you said, as when they pass you the money, they used to say things like, I hope you die, or I hope you crash, or your wife's a whore. You used to hear a lot of these words, and when you first start in this industry, maybe for the first month, it does annoy you a little bit, you know, and it gets to you. And some people, it constantly bothers them. And that's why in this industry, they would never succeed. Whereas the good people in this industry, and I became one of the best in the country within 3 months, is because, first of all, you need the discipline. And second of all, you need to learn how to block all of this out and kind of have a straight face of, it doesn't matter who you are, what story you tell me, you're going to be branded the same as the person that's next door, or whichever property I go to next, which ultimately is good and bad, because you do meet some genuine nice people who have come from a very sort of emotional way in which you could connect with them, and you understand how they've not got the money to pay for their fine or whatever it is, and they have genuine reasons. But you kind of have to adapt this mindset of a blank face of, I don't care who you are, where you've come from, you're all the same, pay me your money. And that's because of the way people treat you. It's not really the way you're treating them. It's the way that you know that in 5 minutes time, you might be really nice to me now, because you can have it where I might turn up to say your property right now. You might talk to me nice. You're like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I should have paid my court fine. It could be a speeding ticket as an example. It's one of the big ones here in the UK. You haven't paid your speeding fine. So I'm here, look, you owe the courts £2,000, whatever it is. If you don't pay it, I'm emptying your house. And people can start the conversation quite nice. You meet nice people, but then all of a sudden they can't get the money. I now have to escalate it to, look, we're taking everything, and if you can't get the money, we have no obligation but to take your stuff. Then sometimes they might still be nice and calm and say, okay, that's fine, take it. Then you find this emotional item, which I just referred to, and all of a sudden that person changes. All of a sudden now they're the angriest woman, man in the world. They hate you, they're cursing you, and they could have been really nice to you 5 minutes ago, and they've all of a sudden become a totally different person.
Yeah.
And
fear and desperation, and yeah, it can turn people hugely. Wow, it's very powerful what you're speaking about, what you put yourself through, in a sense. And now you do the veganism, so in a sense you really felt the abuse on your skin, you know, when humanity clash, when we can be so toxic for each other, or we can be in complete flow, you know. And for me, veganism is just really finding harmony with my surrounding, and people and humanity and other, you know, animal is my surrounding, and instead of clashing and taking things away from each other, and leverage on scarcity, because also, you know, eating meat, as we start in this conversation, it brings scarcity of resources, and we live in this world where we believe we don't have enough. And that's
Yes.
what you're talking about, you know, the debt is not having enough, having to give back, not having resources. I mean, I see a lot of parallel in how your life story it's weaving itself. So then anyway,
Yes.
carry on. And then how did you quit that job? How did you move out of that?
So yeah, with all of this that was going on, I realized that, you know, it's time to make a change. I've got to get rid of this, because ultimately I realized it was one of those things where I thought, look, can I carry on doing it part-time and carry on having the guys working for me, make X amount of money? But I realized that, look, it doesn't matter if I can leave that ticking and earn an extra 200,000 a year, just doing minimal work. It's still the way in which it's acquiring is still going to bring me more negative situations, more problems down the line. So I just made that decision, look, got to get rid of it. That's it. And then I set myself a new ambition of, look, now I need to inspire people, inspiring from partly from my story on how it's important to, first of all, earn your money and your wealth in the right way. And second of all, to do something that's good for humanity, which is why I wrote my first book, which is Positive Thoughts, Positive Outcomes, because again, a lot of the topics which I wrote in my book is, as I mentioned a moment ago about the law of attraction, this was the sort of way in which I acquired the wealth in the first place through the enforcement side of things.
Yeah.
So by mastering things like the law of attraction, gratitude, affirmations, meditation, by mastering all this was how I got in that position in the first time, because my main vision and focus was towards wealth. So that's how I got there in the first place, even though it was the wrong way, and, you know, and it's led to different changes, but that's what got me there, and that's what's getting me to where my final destination is in life.
So you mean you're being really focused and devoted to your goal. It's what is the key. And so you can do it in enforcing, or you can do it with surrender, but still staying fully focused and devoted and alerted to what you want. Either is flowing with reality, and so, as you say, affirmation and gratitude still brought you wealth. And you didn't need to enforce it. You just needed to be really clear in how you wanted it. And also something you just said now, it's because you said it's not how much money you make, is how you make it. You've got a quote. How does it go?
Yeah, so it's exactly what you just said. It's not about how much money you make, but how you make your money. And that's generally what I refer a lot of my keynote speeches towards as well, because there's a lot of industries out there, not just enforcement, but there's a lot of sales roles, which again are very scammy. There's a lot of coaches as well. I'm a coach and mentor myself, but there's a lot of coaches out there that do a similar thing, and they're scamming people. They do these speaking courses, and they really don't give anybody any value or any means of help in their life whatsoever. They just refer you to another client which does X, Y, and Z, and you get no value out of it. And there's a lot of people taking people's money in this sort of same negative way. It doesn't have to be through enforcing it via violence or via threats or whatever else it may be. It can be through scams and other different ways in which people are acquiring their wealth as
They
such.
take
And
an
that's,
advantage. And for me, it's the same with
yeah, yeah.
veganism. Is we could say, maybe I'm gonna improvise this, is not about how much you eat or what you eat, it's how it is sourced. It's the same things, you know. For me, also eating meat, we carrying that abuse, like you were getting
Yeah.
money with the curse attached, because was emotionally so charged that it's like you enter in the slaughterhouse, and yes, you got
Yes.
a piece of meat which you think is gonna make you healthy, but when it's got that curse attached, because you were leveraged on the emotional weakness of people, so you were going into the vulnerability of people.
Yeah.
You were taking advantage of your kind, in a sense, and so that wealth wasn't really making you happy and healthy. So you had the money, but you didn't have the abundance of life, the richness of living in a world where there is harmonious exchange. And I find that with meat eating, it's the same patterns. You know, people think, like we said, oh, I need to have a piece of meat because to be healthy, to be strong. but it's not sustainable, and I do feel it does carry energy of loss and violence and separation and longing, because the animals are abandoned, are separated, they are abused, and so when we
Yeah.
eat them, that piece of curse carries with it. So how nourishing can that be? That's always, and people can bring me like medical or scientific report. I don't care, because my heart awareness just can't deny, the energetic of it. Is the same story you just told me. So how can it help you, if it comes from there?
Yeah, and the other one key thing we didn't really discuss with the animal and the vegan side of things, which is massively overlooked. It was only really this year where the media sort of really spoke about it, and that's the Amazon rainforest. Now, people forget that if that Amazon is gone, we pretty much will not have enough oxygen to sustain this environment and this world that we currently live in. And we've already destroyed over 20% of the Amazon rainforest. And what's it for? It's for cattle production. All of these farms in Brazil are the biggest exporter and producer of cattle. They have like tens of thousands of farms in Brazil. It's crazy. The milking industry over there is massive as well. Leather industry in Brazil. So what they're currently doing is, because the Amazon is so huge, it's so hard for them to police it and monitor the perimeter of it. The Amazon's however many times bigger than the UK. So people are, and even the government's encouraging this as well, which is again showing corruption. They're pretty much just going and burning the outskirts, which they reckon the statistics are something like 3 football fields are burnt down each and every minute, I think it is, in the Amazon rainforest, and just so that they can put cattle in its place and herd them so that they can feed Europe and other parts of the world beef, which is just pure corruption, because people are forgetting again, if that Amazon's gone, A, you're going to have no oxygen, and B, that sustains life here on planet Earth. It sustains, because trees and all of this environment absorb the carbon dioxide and the air pollution. So with that gone, not only is the oxygen supply restricted, there's going to be more negative and the bad stuff and the chemicals in the atmosphere. It's also responsible for keeping things like water, fresh drinking water, is all in hand with the way in which this planet's been designed and the way in which the Earth absorbs the negative atmosphere, like the carbons and the emissions in the air. So by us destroying that just to feed our greedy selves beef, which we don't need anyway, is life-changing. And if we don't sort something, we've probably got 100 years left to sort this out. If we don't, the planet's it's a goner in terms of humanity, because we won't sustain.
We're eating ourselves, actually.
Yeah,
we're ending
potentially,
ourselves and this is very much unspoken of, that the Amazon rainforest, actually the main reason for the deforestation is cattle farming. It's very unspoken. There is a big business around meat, clearly, and it's gonna take a lot of courageous young people like you. Thank you for doing your part, and to really change the mindset, because you look beautiful, and you're healthy, and you're strong. And so I feel we teach by action more than what we say. When people think the vegetarian are skinny, hippie, with no willpower, that they end up smoking themselves off in a couch because they can't make it in the world, because they don't have enough energy, you are dismissing that thought just by being who you are. I think that's what's the beauty of it. You're looking really healthy, and your willpower is really strong. And so clearly it doesn't come just from what you eat. You have to culture so much around it. We also, one thing we don't speak enough, we also nourish ourselves, like you say, with what we're thinking, with the air we breathe, the thought we're having, the prana we breathing, we drinking with the skin of our body all the time, the energy around us. So eating, it's a portion of our well-being, but not such a big one like we were made believe. I mean, I'm Italian. You can imagine the culture on food in Italy. It's extreme. And I'm learning that more and more, actually eating less allow me to have more energy. I don't spend all my time digesting. And so my whole body energy, it's in my stomach, and then I'm tired because I'm digesting, and meat take a lot of energy to digest. And
Yeah, and this is a massive thing that a lot of people, again, I think in the last few years, a lot more people are talking about the health and the dietary side of things because, yeah, we all do it at some point. We all fall victim, whether it's a friend's, a party, a barbecue, Christmas, birthday, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We all fall victim to overindulging and having a large meal, and you come out feeling so full you feel sick, and you're like, why have I just eaten all that food? And it does happen, but too many people are doing it each and every day, and particularly in the evening. Now, as yourself coming from working with Brian on the London Reel, you've probably seen one of his recent interviews which talks about it all the time, and that's Master Chi. And Master Chi talks a lot about you should never eat after 6 o'clock or never eat in the evening, which is a big thing I've always pushed. As you know, I've always been healthy with my diet and with my bodybuilding background, especially. And that's, yeah, you should never, or certainly restrict it depending on your lifestyle, eating in the evening or after 6 p.m. because of the fact that your body does have to work harder and digest that food. So when you go to sleep, rather than your body processing your thoughts and processing everything through the day and utilizing your energy in a more effective working machine, it's just all it's doing is digesting that food.
Yeah.
And which again, it can't do it when you're asleep because your body doesn't digest properly when you're asleep anyway. And ultimately, first you're missing out on your manifestations because people are doing all their gratitude, their law of attraction, their meditation. They're saying, why is everything not coming to me? You know, I'm visualizing myself in my Ferrari. Why have I not got my Ferrari? But then they're doing silly little things like pigging out and eating too much food. And then they totally neglect the health side of it, which is massively vital for attracting what you want into your life. And that's, again, yes, eating the right foods and eating not in the evening.
Yeah, and eating less generally, and this fear,
Yes.
oh my God, I'm gonna die. We're so afraid of the unknown. I think veganism what scared people because it's new, they don't know. And so it's already pushed away. And so eating a lot is what we know well, and it's comfort. And for me also to learn to do intermittent fasting, to stay a little bit hungry, a little bit with a little bit of empty stomach, and just watch myself surviving that. And that allowed me to get to know myself a little bit more, and also get to know myself when I'm on my edge, not when I'm in the comfort zone, because then there's the same me, you know, feeding myself the same thought, and then we wonder why change doesn't happen. Well, if we start to change habits, and now I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I haven't eaten, I've got more energy, I don't know what to do with it, and I'm gonna find new ways to move my body, move my mind, and then there is new life presenting itself, you know. So I'm really excited about veganism as the future of the planet, because I'm curious to see how we're gonna become creative with our eating habit, and how we're gonna spend our time when we eat less. You know, when I go into a fast, the first thing that really hit me every time that I've got so much time, because I don't go shopping, I don't cook, I don't wash dishes, and I don't have to have my digest time. There is about 4 hours of free time suddenly in my day. And I notice every time, I don't know what to do with myself. And it's like, wow, we're always longing for more time. And here I've got all this time. And surprisingly, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to do, you know, and that's beautiful because it pushed my beingness into more discovery. But anyway, we're diverging a little bit, which is all well and good.
No, that's good.
I want to come back to your book. We started introducing it, and when did you write it, and what is the title?
Whenever I'm at events and things like that, people always say, you know, they're looking for advice. People are looking at starting their own books as entrepreneurs. How long did it take you is a question I get asked all the time. I actually wrote my first book in less than 1 month. And I think if for anyone that's going to write a book that's listening to this or watching this, if we put the video out, and that's when you're writing a book, I find if you do it part-time, it will take you a lot longer. So most people try and fit it in with their businesses, with their day jobs, whatever it is they do, and they just do the odd 1 hour a week or whatever they can fit in, 2 hours, 3 hours a week. Yes, that may work, and you'll eventually get your book done in 2-3 years or however long. But I find you need to just dedicate the time. You know, if you work for a company or corporation, you're employed, get your holidays and book off a whole month and say, I'm going to write my book right now and it's going to be finished by the time I go back to work. if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, your time's more freely and you can do what you want anyway. So I dedicated, right, I'm putting business to one side and I'm going to finish this book. And that was ultimately what I did. I just set my decision, write the chapters, right, what chapters am I doing, lay out each chapter and take it from there. But the real thing which people forget about, it takes a long time, and that's the editing. Now, it might take 1 month.
Did you, someone else edited for you? How did you structure it?
Yeah, it was jointly. So I had another co-editor doing it as well, but I was doing a lot of the editing. I probably read the book myself about 18 or 20 times. So by the time it was actually going on into the stores, I was sick of reading the book, because you've read it so many times that it goes in one ear out the other and you're not even really paying attention to what you've wrote. So it's quite good to go back like a month or two later and read your book again and actually go, wow, I actually wrote that. It's crazy, because writing was something I was never good at, and I used to hate English literature at school. So writing was never good. I've always been very good with numbers and the mathematical side of things, but writing, never been good. So for me to have wrote what I have wrote is quite fascinating. And it was just something that the universe kept telling me to do. Look, you need to get your book out there. And ultimately, I think the key thing for an author and for an entrepreneur in particular is you don't write a book to make money. You never write a book to make money. You write a book to have this as your business card, which is, as you mentioned at the start, what did I give you 2 weeks ago when we met? You said, have you got a business card? Yeah, here. And I gave you a copy of my book. And that now elevates my authority way higher than if I just gave you a cheap, flimsy cardboard business card. Yeah, it puts your authority in the market so much higher. You look more professional, and which is the reason why having your own book is vital for anyone that wants to succeed in business. And I kept meditating, and the universe was telling me, look, you need to finish this book, you need to get it done. So I was like, right, I'm going to do it. And then I even had the book finished, kind of didn't start the editing. I just had it finished. And what I kept doing was saying, I'm going to release this book once I've got more publicity and once I'm more well known, because I was trying to push the numbers of the book to over 100,000, which is still my goal. And I kept realizing that, look, if I keep waiting and waiting, it might be another 2 years before I'm more well known as an entrepreneur. So let's just do it. Let's just get it out there. Let's put it out and ultimately use it as a tool, like I am now as a business card.
Yeah. And one big teaching I've learned from Brian Rose, since he's been a thread we've been mentioning from the course, what I've learned from him is to do things, get them done and get them out and move on and think about the next one. That's
Absolutely.
So much time sitting and we're looking for perfection and we're never ready. There is always a reason. I need to be more famous. I need to be more exposed. And then we creating, our expression of our talent, and we keep them in the drawer all the time. And one of my teachers used to tell me, we get really tired by all the things we don't do, not by the things we do. Yes. When we get them done, we lighten up and we are charged and energized. But all these half-done things, or the dream, and the half-written book, or for me was this podcast show. I had it in mind for 3 years, and I was always waiting to get the technology done and maybe a studio, waiting for the perfection, and it's never gonna come. And now, as I'm doing it, I'm getting better at it and I'm growing with it. And for you, it's the same. You got the book out, and maybe if there is more to say there, you got the second book. Nothing will stop you to write another one, when you find your ideal situation, and one more. And don't look back too much at what was done, but keep looking at what new can I do. And that was a good push for me. And
yeah, that's good. And like you said, it's one of those things, you have to make that decision, which is what you've done, starting the podcast. And each and every time that you interview a new client, you're going to get better. You'll naturally think of more questions. And as you said, over time, you'll slowly progress up the ladder in terms of, you might start off in a little office somewhere, and then you'll have your own studio of your own. Then before you know it, you've got 10 staff working for you. And that's ultimately how it works. And if we keep doing what you just said, which is, oh, let's wait until I've got the studio, let's wait until I've got the money to buy and pay for 5 staff, before you know it, people have put it off for 10 years and they've never done their ambition because they've kept putting it off and putting it off. You just have to make that decision and say, enough's enough, I'm done, I'm going to start, and that's ultimately it.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question. I see we almost with time. So I've got two more questions for you that are typical of this podcast because it's called Erotic Wisdom. So I want to ask you if you remember, and if you'd like to share with us, you can also choose not to, feel that freedom. If you remember your first erotic experience in your life as a human being, you know, as a child, as a growing being in a body. And when I speak like this, I mean when you discover that your body is a tool of pleasure, but also it's a tool of awakening. Pleasure, it's a tool of awakening. If you remember as a little kids, maybe if you had any experience that was quite pivotal, that settled you in the body, if there's any memory like this that you would share with us.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't say I could recall anything, but I'd say probably as a guy, whether it's at puberty, you know, as a teenage boy, everybody starts masturbating and things like that. So I suppose that's probably a male's erotic awakening as such. It's always more for a man than it is for a female. So I would probably say that has to be it. I can't really pinpoint any particular area and say that this would be either the first time I experienced something or yeah, so I think that's probably
So
all I
you
can think
just
of.
found
Really.
yourself, you know, and that is the erotic awakening, you know, finding my own body and realizing that I can give so much pleasure to myself, you know, and
Yeah.
that moment of self-loving, I become one with the cosmos, and we become self-sufficient, you know, our own
Well, I
sustainable.
think again, yeah, I think going back to the muscle side of things, you know, we briefly talked about the bodybuilding. I think
Yeah.
it's an erotic awakening in its own way. Again, has with the when you get the muscle pumps and when you're again a topic we mentioned we might briefly talk about if we've got time, and that's steroids. And
Yes.
again, yes, and again
Tell me about it.
when you're pumped up or jacked up on steroids, which again elevates a man's testosterone 5-10 times fold, you ultimately do get that sort of godlike feeling, especially if the combination and the potent and everything else is correct. You feel like it's something that you can't really explain. And I would say that's probably an erotic awakening on its own, because this is where the addiction of bodybuilding comes in. This is when the addiction of wanting bigger, faster, stronger muscles and athleticism come in, because of this feeling that it gives you inside.
So give me a little bit more hints. What sort of feeling it is? Like you feel godlike, and
Well,
describe it more for me. Because of
well, in
course, I
terms,
have to say it leveled the testosterone. So there is an eroticism about it. Is it about conquering, or is it about being at one with it? Um,
well,
yeah.
the thing is with steroids, it goes into what you're taking and how you're taking it and with what diet you're taking with the different combinations and the different cycles that you're on, because sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. If you get the dose and the potent and everything else right, as an example, there's a drug called halotestin, and it's a steroid that many athletes don't talk about, and many bodybuilders don't talk about it. But halotestin is the strongest testosterone anyone can purchase. It comes in tablet form only, so it's very toxic for the liver. But it makes you feel, it makes you again feel quite aggressive, because some people do get quite aggressive on it because your testosterone becomes kind of too high. But at the same time, you feel like Hercules from the movie or Incredible Hulk. You know, you feel like that no one can stop me and I am invincible. And where steroids kind of get their bad reputation is because so many youngsters take it. They mix cocaine, they mix alcohol, and they mix steroids on a Friday, Saturday night, whatever they're going out for the weekend. And all three of those drugs make you feel good about yourself. So you become too cocky, you become too high, and you can't manage that risk, because alcohol can give you a confidence boost. Cocaine does that for sure. A lot of people are aware of that. And if you're mixing that with testosterone and things like halotestin, you're asking for trouble, because A, you're going to probably be fighting people. B, you're just going to become a bit of an arsehole. And this is where steroids get their bad reputation from in the press, because they tend to see the youngsters, the young teenagers or the early 20s, mixing all of these drugs together, which give the sport and the reputation a bad a bad name for itself.
Yeah, but also I guess it's really bad internally, you know, to have alcohol and cocaine and steroids on the liver if it is already hard on the liver. So your internal organs eventually are gonna collapse, I imagine. So there is the pumping on the outside, but then the consuming from the inside. So I like this picture you gave me about Hercules. I imagine Hercules holding the world on his shoulder, and you know, it's this expansive eroticism. Or do you get very horny to make love, or is more like being horny about being alive and feeling your own body?
Yeah, if you get the steroid cycle correct, which again, this is not a video to say steroids are great, steroids are bad, steroids are ugly. You know, this is a topic I'm trying to get a TEDx talk about, but they keep refusing me because, again, steroids is a subject that too many people try and hide about rather than talk about. Now, if you get steroids right with the correct dosage, which is generally for a male, all you want is something like 500 milligrams of testosterone and probably 50 milligrams of dianabol, which are short and fast acting testosterones in the system. If you get that right with you as an individual, because everybody's slightly different, you will get an increase of pump, so you get more veins bursting in the gym. You get that masculine sort of feel because your chest and your arms and your shoulders, which is what steroids generally grow first and faster, the top half of the male. So you get a bigger chest, you get bigger traps, which is why it's quite easy to see when somebody's on steroids, because you get these big mold, massive mound traps, which in natural human anatomy, you can't build on the anatomy. You can't build these massive traps. So when I see people, it's easy for someone that's been through steroids and been through the journey. I know, right, you're on them, because I know that can't naturally be built the way that you've got them. So your lats as well, which is your wings as such, so your back muscles, your chest, all of this grows and makes you feel godlike. Very
imagine also is the heart area. So this huge expansion of feeling fully. I'm just trying to imagine it. It's not
and of course as well, it increase because of this increase of testosterone in men and women, not just men, because women don't talk about it enough either. If you get it right, it would increase your level of horniness like 5 times what you naturally would get. So people might think, oh, I'm naturally quite a horny person. Well, if you get the right steroid cycle, you'll be an animal, because you become like savage. Like if you don't have it, you get miserable or you get moody, because it affects you in a different way, where you've got to have that release. You've got to get it done, otherwise it makes you moody, and it does make you a bit annoyed if you don't kind of release yourself, because you've got like an overflow of testosterone. You've got to get it out of you.
Yeah, I think the ultimate would be, you know, to match that godlike feeling, to feel fulfilled with yourself, you know, like this is where now you need to release and you become independent. And ideally, you know, in Tantrism, we're looking always to self-fulfillment, to arrive and live from that place where I feel like godly, that the world is my oyster, that I'm powerful and omnipresent, and I can self-fulfill, that I find harmony without needing to release the energy, that it can feed back into myself. But you know, it takes also a lot of.
And it's an exciting and interesting topic, because again, when like the media again talks about steroids and they show you certain clients or individuals they've led to depression, a lot of this depression comes from the topics that are not talked about. Because again, if you get the cycle incorrect, like I just briefly mentioned, as an example, if you take what's called tren and deca and testosterone mixed together. Now, deca and tren are nandrolones rather than testosterone, so it's a different form of performance-enhancing drugs. Nandrolones work slightly different than testosterones, but they're even stronger than testosterones. So if you take too much of those and you don't get the blend of testosterone and nandrolone correct, you actually do the opposite effect, and now your libido goes down to the point where you don't have a libido. Or during sexual intercourse, you can't finish, which for a man is very depressing, because now you haven't got no manlyhood, because either you can't get hard in the first place, or you can't finish to the point where yeah, it might seem great at first. I can go for an hour because that's what a lot of men seem to want to do. Oh, let me go forever and ever. All right, that might seem good at first, but after so long, you actually get very frustrated because you don't get any pleasure because
Yeah.
you keep going and going and going and going and going, and
Unless
there's
you're
none of that
trained.
release.
I wonder, unless you train yourself and train your mind.
Not if you get the wrong blend of steroids, because
Yeah,
that's what they do. They alter the way in which
of
the
course.
mind works. They alter the genetic structure, and yeah, so it's an experience that I've been through. I've been through both sides of the spectrum, and there are good sides to steroids, there's bad sides, and you know, this is why people need to educate themselves on that topic before they look at going into any sport that
Judgment.
requires, yeah,
Yeah,
or any judgmental or
yeah,
gets into any sport, because a lot of people will say, I want to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. I want to be a professional boxer. I want to be a professional bodybuilder. I want to be a professional footballer. I guarantee you 100% that 99% of all those athletes take drugs and performance enhancing steroids, anabolics, whatever it is that they're taking. They're all taking them. Okay, I know people that sell drugs to golfers. And people think, what does a golfer want a drug for? Well, golfing can still be strenuous on the shoulders and the back from constant twisting. Okay, take some performance enhancing drugs like Deca. Deca eases on the joints as an example, so your joints don't take the pressure. And they're all taking these types of drugs, but it's not talked about in the industry because it's something that people are hiding away from, and they don't realize that they say people are cheating. They're not cheating because every athlete's taking it. I guarantee
yeah.
you, every athlete is taking it. But
It's
people
part
claim
of
that
the
they're
game.
cheating when they get caught.
Yeah,
Sorry?
it's part of the game, I guess. If you want to compete at that level,
Yes, you have
that
to.
is the shadow aspect. Everybody does it, but no one want to really say it. But we know it's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So thank you so much, Shane, for this conversation. It's been really delightful, feeling from your energy and your excitement. And so I've got the last question for you, and then we can maybe wrap up this interview. And maybe after the question, you can give us all your point of connection, where people can find you.
Yeah.
And my last question for you is, in your experience, of course, just from how you know life to be, it's life a dream, or dreams help you to live better? It's life
Say the question.
It's life a dream, or dream help you to live better? What do you think?
So,
It's a pseudo esoteric question. It's my close-up question for my interview. It's life a dreams, or dreams help you to live better? What do you think?
well, I think dreams, in terms of dreams, they actually give you a perception of what you should be doing. Dreams give you direction, and dreams give you interpretation of where your life should be going. And it's so in terms of dreams do become ultimately your reality, but it's learning how to read and master your dreams, which is a lot of people are not aware of how to interpret your dreams. Like every night, if you have a dream, you will get a message of some kind. It can sometimes be like one of your angelic numbers, as an example, like for the last 2 months, I've constantly been seeing the number 2222, which if you do some research on quadruple two, it actually states basically, don't worry, your manifestations and desires are on their way to you, which is something that I know as well. So in terms of the dreams, I would say, yes, dreams are very important because you get little signs like this where you keep seeing numbers. You keep seeing a particular place, so it might give you a message, but you have to learn how to change that message, because how it's perceived in the dream doesn't mean that's going to happen in your real life. It's just telling you a message of either watch out from a person, or don't go down this path, or don't invest in what you're thinking about doing, because you might have a dream of losing loads of money, and at the time you are thinking about where to invest in a particular company. What that dream can be telling you is don't do it, because if you do, you're going to lose a load of money. So it's learning how to read what the dreams are telling you.
So dream, like I guess your answer is that if you are willing to really take your dream seriously, they do help you to live better, because they are pearls of wisdom, eh?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Dreams definitely can help you live better. They can give you guide, they can give you direction in life. It's just people need to generally learn how to read their dreams and master what the signs are that's being given to you.
So thank you so much, Shane. I look forward to have you again on the show after my
Yes,
100th
great. Thank
episode,
you.
perhaps, and we'll see how I've moved, how you moved, and
Yes.
we'll meet again. And please, I'm gonna in the description of the podcast, which is eroticwisdom.org. Anybody want to look at all the other episodes and the commentary, I'm gonna write down your website, your Instagram. You gave me all the links, and your website about veganism. Do you want to just say it now while people are listening?
Yeah, so our brand new launch company is called Vegan Friends. That's vegan with an F. So Vegan Friends, and the reason why we actually called the business Vegan Friends is because in the Old English language, vegan meant to unite and join as one, which is why we've gone for a platform aimed towards veganism and environmentalists, where everyone can join together, who believe on saving the planet, saving the animals, doing their good for mankind, all under one social media platform. So it's a full integrated social media. There's event listings, job listings, gamification. You can earn points, stars, and everything else. So check us out. It's called veganfriends.com. We are currently seeking as well, at the moment, we're going through seed stage to try and seek VC funding so that we can take the business to the next level. So right now, even though we're available, we're kind of calling it a soft launch because we're not doing full-on marketing campaigns or anything like that. It's just word of mouth at the moment. And if I speak to somebody like you, I will tell you about it. But apart from that, the investment side of it is taking priority right now in terms of communication and who we're speaking to and who we're contacting. So that is something we're looking at doing. So once that all goes well in the next month or two, you will see a lot more coming from us in terms of the app development. Right now, it's fully responsive on desktop and on mobile. So yeah, check out veganfriends.com.
Fantastic. And your book, we can find it on your website, hey?
Yeah, the book is Positive Thoughts, Positive Outcomes, Master the 14 Principles to Transform Your Life. You can get it on my website, shanesenior.com. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Waterstones. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, Book Depository. It's available everywhere. It's also available on Audible. So if you like my voice and you like listening to me for 4 or 5 hours, then you can get it on Audible as well as Google Play, Apple Play, wherever you listen to your Audible audio books. It is available on there as well.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. So have a wonderful Christmas. Have a nice
and to you,
Christmas.
and to all, yes, have a nice Christmas, a happy new year to all the listeners and all the viewers, and thank you very much for having me on the show.
Yeah, and so many blessings to your future, and really wish you a lot of success in your life. And
yes, and the same back to you. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, and we'll communicate again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. All the best. See you soon. Ta-da.
And we'll check soon again. Ciao.
Yes, goodbye. Thank you.